Very good. It's all yours, Katrina. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, it's great to be here this morning. Let me just find my spot. It's going to stay. Okay, yeah, it's great to be here this morning. Thank you for inviting us to come. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a missionary in Mozambique that your church has been supporting for about a year now. And so I'm here this morning just to get to know you and to share about our ministry and our life in Mozambique. And I hope that you have a great time and that you learn something and that God just speaks to you through what I share. And so before I get into things, I just want to introduce my family. And so I married a Mozambican. And so Zach, if you want to stand up or wave or do something. And then my parents are here as well this morning. So Mum and Dad are with us. And because we've only got a 5-seater car at the moment, and we've got a six family, so 6 in our family, so we needed someone to help us come here. So, and then Garen, if you want to stand up and wave, is our first son, and Ethan is our second son. Our other 2 children are out somewhere because we've got a 3-year-old that's running around with our 10-year-old. So we've got Caitlin is 10 and then Declan is 3. And then we've got our friend Nick wanted to come with us just to support us, and so Nick's here as well today. So, okay, so we live in Kyabram. That's where I grew up, and so we've travelled from Kai today. And so I grew up in the church, and so I'm basically going to give my testimony today because you don't really know who I am, and you don't, and so you'll get to know me and get to know my story. And so my story is that I grew up in the church, and I've always, ever since I can remember, gone to church every Sunday, went to kids' church, and was very actively involved in church life. And today I want to talk about one of the verses that I learned in kids' church, and it's been a foundation scripture for me, and it's been one that God keeps bringing me back to because it's so important. And you're all going to know it because it's one of those verses that everybody knows. As soon as I say where it comes from, you're going to be able to say it with me. Okay? It is Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Okay? Who can say that with me? Okay? Okay, let's say it all together. Ready? Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Okay, that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Oh, here's my 3-year-old who heard me talking. So we all need to trust in the Lord, okay? There's always times and circumstances in our life that we need to trust him. And it just keeps coming. You think, yes, I've learned to trust him in something. And then something new comes along and it's like, oh, I have to trust him in that as well. And then something else comes along and you still have to trust him. And it's like, you never stop learning to trust God because there are things in your life that just don't make sense. You know, there's things that happen that come along and it's like, God, I just don't understand this. You know, it's like, but I trust you. And you need to be able to trust God in those times that don't make sense. And so there are times in my life that haven't made sense, and I'll share that along my story. But I want to start with why I became a missionary. And so why I became a missionary is I've always loved children. I love kids. Babies are my favourite. And so if there's any babies, you know, like I'm a magnet to them, and I want them to be in my arms, and I play with them, and I tickle them, and I have fun, and most of them don't cry because they just know that I love them. You know, it's like so I've always been a child lover, and so one school holidays when we didn't have kids' church and all the kids were in the service, our pastor's wife told a story. She got us all to come and sit down the front, and she told a story. And the story was of Amy Carmichael. Those of you who know her story, Amy was a missionary kid in India. And she had brown eyes. Well, I've got brown eyes. And so I immediately perked up, like, oh, okay, she had brown eyes. But she wanted blue eyes. And so she prayed and she said, God, please give me blue eyes. Well, most of you know that that's impossible to do unless God does it. So it would have been a miracle, but he didn't do it because he said to her, he said, no, Amy, I'm going to use you, and I need to use you with your brown eyes because your brown eyes are like the Indians, and you're going to be a person that goes into the Indian temples, and you're going to help to save many children. And so she, her skin was a bit lighter than Indians, but she just used some charcoal to, darken her skin, and she looked like an Indian, and she'd go into these temples and she'd save many, many children. And so I was like, wow, that's a fantastic story. I've got brown eyes and I can save children too. And so that really, really touched my heart as a child. And I was like, I really began to think about being a missionary like Amy Carmichael had been. And then I'm not sure whether it was before or after this, but also as a child, we watched the movie of Gladys Arwood, another missionary. And Gladys was an English missionary who went to China. And she also had an orphanage where she had about 100 children or so. And she had to save those children during a war by walking them a long way over the mountains. And it was a long, difficult journey, but she saved all of those children and more, and got them safely to a city that was in a safe place. And so that story really captured my attention as well. I was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. I can do that. And so I began to have a statement that I would always say. And it was like my dream. And my dream was to have a children's home because I loved children with 100 children no, sorry, not 100, 200, because like Gladys had 100. I doubled it because I thought that was better. And so with 200 children, 6 of them my own because I wanted to have a big family. And so that's what I always said to people. That's what I wanted to do when I grew up. And so that was my dream and my passion. But it wasn't easy to get that. It was like, how can I do that? And so as I finished school, I decided to do childcare, and so I became a childcare worker and worked in childcare for nearly 10 years. And but it wasn't fun. I loved it, but it wasn't fun because my boss was a terrible boss. He hated me, and so I had to trust God. I'm like, God, I know you want me to do something with kids, and I'm in this place, and I love the kids. The kids were, I just found some photos the other day, actually, that Mum gave me back of all the kids that I used to work with. I'm like, oh, look at these beautiful children I used to work with. And so I loved the kids, but my boss really didn't like me. And it was because he didn't do things properly, and I was trying to do things properly. And so I said things because I'm pretty direct, and he didn't like that. So he took it out on me and made my life pretty miserable. And so finally, one of my pastors said to me, Katrina, what are you doing? You know what your passion is. Why don't you do something about it? And so I'm like, yeah, I just don't know how. How do I get into mission? And he's like, well, our church supports a orphanage in Thailand. Why don't you go to Thailand one time? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I did that, and I went with one of the older ladies in our church, and I went for 1 month, and I had the best time. It was so good. It was in Khon Kaen. They had just started a new part of their orphanage, working with HIV/AIDS babies, and so they only had about 10 or 15 children, so it wasn't a lot of children there, but they were your babies. Like, they were the ones that I love, so babies and toddlers, my favourite age group. And so I had the best time ever, and I came back and I'm like, that's where I'm going to go. And so the following year I went back with one of my cousins, second cousin, Kez Butler, for those who know Kez. And once again, I had a wonderful time. But this time, there were too many white Western people from many different places. And I just felt God saying to me, you don't need to be here. There's plenty of other people who are here, and your place is somewhere else. And so I was disappointed, but it was okay. I was like, okay, I just, God, you'll open up a different door for me. And so I had to trust him again. I had to go, okay, God, that's not quite what I wanted. I would have loved to have planted myself firmly in Thailand. And I love the Thai food. The Thai people are just beautiful people. And everything was so good, but it just wasn't where God wanted me to be. And so I had to keep trusting him. That was in 2001, 2002. So that was okay. And so I just was like, okay. So I just kept working. And finally in 2006, once again, my pastor friend said to me, Katrina, you did that Thailand stuff, but what are you doing? You haven't done anything more. And I'm like, okay, yes, I know. My boss is getting even worse than he was, and I really need to do something about this. And so I approached ACC iMissions to ask them, do you have anywhere where I could go? I want to work with children. And she actually, Kay, the person responsible at the time, actually was finding it difficult to find anywhere she felt was a good place for me. And it took her a little while until finally she said, Katrina, I've got this opportunity for you in Sri Lanka. And you can go there for 6 months. And so I'm like, yes, great. I'm going. And so off I go to Sri Lanka to work with a couple called Alison and Narelle Atkinson. And they had just started a ministry called Help Kids, which was working with street children who lived on the street with their mums. And then during the day, we'd go and pick them all up in the morning, would bring them to our centre that have preschool or creche, depending on how old they were. And then at the end of the day, we'd take them back to their mums on the street. And so it was an amazing experience. And once again, I had an amazing time. I love Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is the best. And their food is amazing. And the people are beautiful. And the church I went to was a English-speaking church. So it was a church that I could, communicate with. And so I got into a home group. And I felt like I was connected to people. But Sri Lanka is not a safe country. And there's always problems between the government and the Tamils, and there's always conflict happening. And so they make it extremely hard for tourists or foreigners to get long-term visas. And so they wouldn't let me extend my visa, and they wouldn't let me go home and come back again. It was basically just go home, And so that was also a shut door. And so now I've had 2 shut doors on my dream, on what I felt God was calling me to do. And so I'm like, God, this time I actually got grumpy with God. I didn't quite trust him as much as I had previously, because this time I was getting closer to the age of 30, and my dream wasn't happening. I hadn't had and didn't have any boyfriend at all, the future of a husband and children wasn't looking very very good. My mission work just was falling apart everywhere I went. It just wasn't wasn't opening up for me, and so I got grumpy with God. And I didn't rebel, but I tested, in my heart, I wasn't, very nice to him sometimes. And but the more I tested him, the more he just showed his love towards me. He just poured out his love on me, and he was just so gracious to me. And I actually was a bit grumpy about that. Actually, I'm like, God, you don't have to be so good to me. I'm actually being bad. But he was showing me that even when you're bad, he will love you anyway, like a father does. And so at this point, it was getting close to Mother's Day, and we had started a smaller church in Rushworth, and the pastor of Rushworth approached me and said, Katrina, I want you to speak at Rushworth on Mother's Day. Well, I really didn't like that at all. I'm like, are you serious? Because everything I was grumpy with God about, not being married, not having children, not being a mother. And so I'm like, I said to him, are you serious? I'm not a mother. And he asked me at Living Waters in Kai, and so he said, look around you, Katrina. All these children, they all adore you, and you are a mother to them, even though you're not their biological mother. And I'm like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's just not the same. And but in my spirit, I felt God say to me, say yes. And so I'm like, oh, okay, yes, I will do it. And so then I'm like, God, what do you want me to share? And do you know what his response was? Share what you've been going through. Share how grumpy you've been with me. And I'm like, no way. I'm not going to get up in front of people who I'm really close to and tell them, hey guys, I'm being grumpy with God. I'm just not going to do that. But he said, no, do it. And so I got brave. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, and I had to trust God in it. But I got up and I shared my story, and I shared my heart with them that day. And within 6 weeks, I was in Mozambique. That's what God wanted to have happen, to break open the door. And so on about the 22nd, I think it was, of July, I flew to Mozambique, and so that was in 2007. And so I went for 12 months to begin with, and I went to work with another missionary who had a Bible school, and that's her passion. Her passion is the Bible school. But she was wanting to build, someone in her leadership was wanting to build a creche and preschool. And Robbie just had no interest in it, but she said, okay, let's do it, but we have to get somebody else to come and run it because I'm not doing it. And so she wanted someone to come and run the creche and preschool. And so that was going to be my responsibility. And the only thing that I didn't really have qualifications to do or had never done before was I had to teach and train the people to work in the creche and preschool. And I had never done any teaching at all. I taught kids church for years, but that's as much as I had taught. And so I'm like, it can't be too hard, can it? So I still said yes. And I thought she would help me. I thought she's got a Bible school. She runs a curriculum of Bible school. She'll be able to help me. And so I arrive and I sit down with her and I say, how are we going to do this, teaching? And she goes, I want you to do 3 months of teaching. And it will be from 9 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. I'm like, okay, that's a lot of teaching time. But what am I going to do? She looked at me and she goes, you work it out. And I'm like, are you serious? I've got no idea how to write a curriculum. I've got no idea how to teach people. And so that was the end of July, and I was starting teaching at the beginning of September. So I basically had roughly 4 to 5 weeks to get this curriculum written or prepared. And I was scared out of my brains. I had no idea. I'm like, God, help me. And I had to trust him. I just had to say, God, I trust you to give me the ability to do this. And he began to give me ideas. Ideas were coming to me of what to do for the first month, what to do for the second month, what to do for the third month. And so I had the very basic, structure for to begin with. I'm like, okay, God, you've given me that. Now I have to put all the pieces in, to the first month so that I can start teaching. And so the first month was completely worked out when I started teaching. But the second and third months, I still hadn't fully worked out yet. So I was teaching all day, and then I was coming home at night and continuing to prepare for the next few weeks that I hadn't quite worked out yet. It was the most intense time, but I tell you, it was the best time because the Holy Spirit just was upon me and it was leading me and was guiding me. And because I had put my trust in God, everything just flowed. And it wasn't hard. It was it has seemed impossible when she said, do it yourself. But I did it. And it was the best time that I had. We had the best time. I had 10 students. And I had an interpreter because I didn't know Portuguese, still don't know Portuguese very well. But it was just such a wonderful blessing of seeing God's faithfulness when you put your trust in Him. Because when you trust Him, He will do it for you. He will help you. He doesn't leave you like I felt Robbie did. I felt like she just deserted me. It was like, but God didn't. She and she didn't really. She just knew that God needed, to show me that I can do it. and so I did that training, and I did that training about 4 times after that. So I did about 4 or 5 times altogether over the next nearly 3 years, because I went back to Australia after 12 months, 13 months I did, and then I came back in 2009 and did some more training when I came back, because the centre was being built, and building always doesn't go according to plan. Like, I don't know about you, but if you're doing any building, it never goes according to plan. It's like it takes longer, and so it took a lot longer than what she wanted it to do, and finally it was opened in 2010. It opened. So I met my husband during that time. I didn't meet him in the first 13 months. When I came back in 2009, they had started cell churches, and so I was put in this cell church, which was a long way from where I lived. I had to walk about nearly an hour to get to this place to go to cell church, but it was his closest one for where he lived, and so it was where he went to cell church, and so we met at cell church, and so I wasn't really interested to begin with, but there was a couple of other Australian girls who were like, he's your man. And it's like, and so they just kept on bugging me, like, come on, he's your man, like he's good. And so by the end of that year, they left in October, I think. They left in October, and in December, about the 6th of December, we got together. So they were right. And so we were married in 2011 in Mozambique. My parents, Nick, and I think there were 17 Australians came to Mozambique to be at our wedding, and it was wonderful. So I was leading the preschool for that in that year of our marriage. But towards the end of 2011, one of the Mozambican leaders was getting jealous of me. She wanted to have she was the one that wanted to do the preschool originally, and so she wanted to be hers, and she felt that it wasn't hers. It was I was doing too much and had too much responsibility, and she started causing quite a few problems. And so by the middle of 2012, we left them. They actually asked us to leave, so we left, and it brought me to my next place of having to trust God, because Zach was studying medicine. And so he had his dream, he had what he was doing, and what did I have? I had nothing. Like everything had just been pulled out from underneath me. And it was one of the most challenging times of my life, because he was also in his own country. So he had his own country, he had his own people, he had his dream, he had everything, it's like, and I was in a totally different country with people that I didn't really know, and nothing to say, this is what I'm doing. And it was a really, really tough time. So ACC gave me 12 months just to try and work out what to do, and so they didn't expect me to do too much in that 12 months. And so in that 12 months, I was just seeking God and praying, and God, what do you want me to do? And it was also, I was pregnant with our first child, so that probably helped. God just knows everything. He knows how to help things out. So I had our first child in December 2012. And then in 2013, I was seeking God and praying, got pregnant with our second son, so we had those two very close together. And it was in 2014 that we started our ministry. And so our ministry is called the Living Word Ministries. And what God was showing me during that time is we had started going to a church, and a different church, and we had a few friends in other churches, and all the churches that we knew didn't have good kids programs, and they didn't have any teaching for the kids. The kids were just in church every Sunday and there was nothing for them. And I just felt like I had been a kids' church leader for years. Like after being a kid, I became a kids leader immediately. You know, like I went from being a kid to being a kids leader. You know, like, and so like I'd been a kids leader for like years, and so I did have like the ability to, you know, like to do that, and so I felt God was telling me to. Develop a teaching for teaching kids leaders how to be a kids leader. And God had prepared me for that, hadn't He? You know, like, so, like, He knows everything. It's like, and so this time around, it wasn't so daunting. It was like, yeah, I can do that. You know, like, I can do a week of, and it's only 1 week as well. It's not 3 months. It's like, so I can do that, and then write the curriculum. So, like, they've got something that they can use, so that they don't just be taught and then like, well, what do we do? Like, we don't know what to do, and so that's what we began doing, and it was really fun. I love, God showed me that I love teaching. And God showed me that I love to talk. And so I've learnt too that it doesn't worry me to get up in front of people. Like I used to have to need notes. And even today, my husband was like, you need notes. I'm like, I can't find the ones that I had. And so he's like, well, just write some more. And I'm like, well, I've got 4 lines written. But that's God. Once again, that's been trusting in God, you know, like, and God helping me get to the point where I no longer need to read every word because I'm so nervous. You know, it's like, so it's how God develops you. And so, yeah, so we did that for quite a few years until about 2019, in 2019, we had a huge cyclone come through our city, and it was a Category 4, I think Category 4. And it devastated the whole city. Our house wasn't too bad. We just had a big mango tree fall on our kitchen roof, which scared the living daylights out of us. And I ran to the kitchen. He ran to the children. So he's a good dad. And I'm like, oh no, there's water coming. He's like, there's nothing you can do. Just leave it. Let's get all the kids into our bedroom, because now we don't want them to be separated from us, and we'll all be in our bedroom, because it was in the middle of the night. So it happened, it got really bad at about 10 o'clock at night. So from 10 till 6 o'clock in the morning was the worst time of the cyclone. So pitch dark, they'd turned off the electricity to keep people safe, because they knew there was going to be power, like lines going down everywhere. And so there was no power. And so we were lying in bed, absolutely scared out of our wits. It was just the worst sound that you've ever heard. And there was another mango tree right near our bedroom. And so I'm like, God, that mango tree needs to stay up. That's what I was praying about. I'm like, God, that mango tree needs to not fall down, or that one's going to fall on us. It's like, and so I was just praying, and like in the end, Zach got up as well, and both of us were just praying in tongues, like just, you know, like we just didn't know what else to do, until finally the wind stopped. I was like, thank you, God, the wind has stopped. And we went outside to see the damage in the morning, and our brick wall had fallen over on one side of the house, and the mango tree. That's all we had. But as we were lying in bed, we heard like the tin roof of other houses just being ripped off and just like blowing everywhere. And you heard all sorts of other noises from like branches falling and different things. And it was, and the wind. And so it was a really, really difficult, challenging time for us. But for me, it wasn't for me personally. It was seeing the devastation of everybody else and not being able to help them. You know, like, I'm like, I wanted to help every single person, you know, like, and so we had bought land that we weren't living on for our ministry. That's about 15 minutes from where we lived. And we had built a small little house on there, and I hadn't even thought about that house. But Zach says to me, he goes, I hope the house is still standing. And I'm like, oh, Zach, it'll still be standing. You know, it's a brick house, you know, like it's strong. And he wasn't so sure. And because of the road conditions, it took a couple of days before we could get there. And when we finally got there, sure enough, it was completely flat, just a foundation. But we had had somebody living in that house, and they had been in that house during the cyclone, and they had gone around and picked up all of the tin from the roof, and they were now living in this little tin shack on the foundation. That's what they were living in by the time we arrived, about 2 or 3 days later, wasn't it? And so we were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We have to help them somehow, but we don't have any money ourselves, and we need to fix our own wall. So ACC helped us fix our wall, and then we were asking churches and different people to help us to rebuild our house, but also we're asking them to help us to help churches, because nearly every single church that we're working with, 19 churches, I think 19 or 20 churches, and out of all of those churches, only one church was standing with no damage. And that's because the pastor was a builder, and he built well. He knew how to build well. He didn't make it the cheapest way. He made it like the strongest way. And so his was still standing. But all the other ones either had no roof or everything had fallen over. And so it was a lot that needed fixing. And so we were able to help put the roof back on two churches, and we helped 2 other churches to build their walls back up from the foundation. But it still didn't feel like a march, it was like that's nothing compared to what's like happening. And so I also found Samaritan's Purse had come to help right after the cyclone, and they had brought tarps with them to help people with no roof, to put like a tarp over their roof and give them shelter. And so I went to them and I said, I'm a missionary. Can you please help me help, like the people that I work with? And so they said, sure, we can do that. And so they allowed me to give out 100 tarps to different people. And so we got all of our churches together and we split them up. It was 100, wasn't it? And we split that up into all of our different churches, and we told our pastors, find the most needy people within your church that need them, and we got them to all come together and we gave them their tarps. And they were so thankful because they had nothing, they had nothing. We also gave a few to the people living around our land, and we found one man who had built himself, like his house had been totally destroyed, and he only had wood. It was like a small little like tent, like this, and he couldn't stand up in it. He was just lying in it. And so when we went past, we saw him there, and Zach called out to him. So he comes out, and Zach said, would you like a tarp? Well, you'd think you'd given him something for Christmas, he was just so excited. And he couldn't believe that people were wanting to help him. Are you sure? Are you sure this is for me? And it's like, yes, it's for you. And it's like, we want to help you. And so we did what we could, but it was a real time of just having to trust God in that time of devastation for so many people. Zach's family was blessed. His mum had nothing go wrong with her house, and Santosh was also good, I think. So his family were basically, blessed, and which was a real blessing for us. And so that was another time of trusting God in everything. And as we were beginning to rebuild, Zach said, let's build bigger and better than we did the first time. So he decided to build a 3-bedroom house. And as he was building it, I said, this looks like it's going to be a good preschool. And so now, instead of it being a house, it's a preschool. And it meant that all that money was from donations from Australia, but it meant that the family was still living in the tin shack. And so Zach was like, we need to do something for them. And so he, with his own money, began building a house over the top of the tin shack. And so it still needs windows and doors, but it's got the roof. So it's got a roof, and they're still living in that area, and they are happy. They're happy to be living in that. It just takes time for things to happen. So we've got a preschool now because of what I said, and so we now have preschool as well as the the leader training. That's the main two things that we focus on. But I also have a real heart for pastors. Pastors in Mozambique are not very well supported, especially if they're not in a denomination. And there are many, many independent churches in Mozambique, because what happens is, sorry, Greg, isn't it? Greg says to himself, oh, I don't like what Daryl's doing. He's not doing a good job. I'm going to go and start my own church. And so Greg goes and starts his own church. Right next door. It can be right next door sometimes. You know, it's like, and you've got two churches. And then the person under Greg goes, oh, I don't like what Greg's doing. I reckon I can do better than him. And so he breaks away and starts a new church. And then it happens again and again. And you've got all these small little churches with 10, 15 people in them, with a pastor that's struggling because they don't have any support. They don't have any connection. They don't have any help. And so I've got a real heart for all of those churches, because yes, they might have started the wrong way, but God still loves them and God wants to see them thriving. And so I love to try and do as many pastor seminars and things as I can to give them encouragement. And those pastors, as soon as they hear that we're doing something, they are there, and they just love the encouragement and they love the support, and they keep asking us to start our own church. Can you be pastors? They call Zach Pastor Zach. So he's also doctor, but he's pastor. It's and so we also have a real passion for helping pastors by doing these pastors and leaders seminars, and so I'll get up the slideshow, if you can start the slideshow, and I'll just to help you see what we're doing, and. So this is us, the ones that you couldn't see before. So the Candes family in Mozambique, that's on our front veranda. That's the mango tree that didn't fall over. Oh, I didn't tell you that. It didn't fall over. So my prayer worked, and it did lean against the house, but it didn't knock it down. So it's still leaning on the house now. They haven't cut it fully down. So and that's the fence that we rebuilt. So that fence there is the one that fell over, and that's now strong, and it won't fall over again. We do things good now that we know. It's nothing will fall over now. So yeah. And this is just for people who, like me, when I first found out I was going to Mozambique, it was where is it? I've got no idea where Mozambique is. And so Mozambique is in Africa, and it's just above South Africa. It's a long country. So it's got South Africa, Zimbabwe, Malawi, what's the other ones, Daddy? Tanzania and Zambia. Is that right? Yeah. And we're in this one here, we're in that little red box. So in a place called Beira, which is the second biggest city in Mozambique, and it's about halfway up the coast of the whole of Mozambique. So that's where we are. And that's why we were so badly affected. That box is where the cyclone totally got, exactly that spot. It wasn't to the north, it wasn't to the south, it was right on Beira. And so that's why we were so badly affected, because we're on the coast. But it did go all the way through to Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe did get damage from that cyclone. So it did go all the way through to Zimbabwe. So it was a pretty bad one. This is our preschool. So that's what it looks like on the outside. And so it's as I said, it's got 3 classrooms. So we have a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and 5-year-old, and they start school when they're 6. So grade 1 is when they turn 6. So one thing we didn't realise was that because it was going to be a house originally, we only have a very small bathroom in the actual house. And so when the government came to see what it was like and say, yes, you can do a preschool, they said, you need to have more toilets. And so this is an outside toilet block, just right close to the preschool, to give us the toilets that we need for the government to say that we can have our preschool. So this is one of the teachers, Helena. In fact, you can be praying for Helena. She's actually pregnant at the moment with her second child, but last year she lost her first child. She had preeclampsia, and it didn't go good. He did live for about 5 days, I think, but then he passed away. And so she's actually not working at the moment. Because she's pregnant again, we've said, you're not working this time. You have to stay home. You have to look after yourself. And so at the moment, they're running with one teacher short because I think she's due in June, so she's getting closer. And that's, Miana was one of our first ever students back in 2022 is when we opened, and she's now at school, but she was very intelligent, and she learnt English really well, and she's a gorgeous little girl. So this is, they always have birthday cakes every month, but this is also this is for Children's Day. So International Children's Day is the 1st of June, and you've never seen it celebrated until you've come to Mozambique. They celebrate Children's Day like you've never seen it before. And so my kids, are in Australia now, and their mum, on the 1st of June, we are celebrating. I'm like, but you don't do it here. We are celebrating because all the schools have cake and they have presents and they have, it's a big party that the kids absolutely love. So that's Children's Day, probably last year or the year before, with all the kids and their cake. So this is during 1 month when they're going to have cake for birthdays. They're all waiting for their birthday cake. And that's graduation. So graduation, they all cut their cake together, and they're all dressed up in their graduation uniforms. This is the leaders training. So we had, where we lived, we had a house that we lived in, and then there was a bungalow out the back, which was a 3-bedroom bungalow, and it had a really long room, which should have been like the lounge area, but it was our teaching, training, doing whatever area for the ministry. So we did all of our ministry work out here, and so we could fit comfortably 25 chairs, and so we try to keep the training to 25 people. Sometimes it was full, other times it was only like 16 or so people. So, we had to do it during school holidays because most of the people that are teachers are also still at school, and so we had to do it during school holidays. So they would give up a week of their school holidays to come and do training. As you can see, I've got puppets. I always teach the story time. I love telling stories, and I love doing. I've changed it from story time to teaching time, because you can tell kids a story of the Bible, but unless they're going to apply it to their life, then they just have a story. And so I've changed it to teaching time, and I now make the curriculum is in a way where they're actually giving a practical way of learning how to apply the story to their own life. And so that's our leaders training. They all get a certificate at the end of the training. So that's our final day with their certificates. And this is a pastor's seminar. There's they're actually 2 different times. So that's and the one on this side is during COVID, if you can tell, because there's social distancing. So, but we didn't let COVID stop us. So we continued, and that's afterwards. They always like to get photos. So, and looking to the future. So when we opened our preschool, we've now got parents saying to us, we need a primary school. Our kids go to the primary school, and they already basically know what they need to know for the first year. And the teachers think they're wonderful. Like the teachers are, oh, wow, this child is very, very intelligent. But it's because they've been taught so good by us in our preschool, and when they get to primary school, the schools are terrible. Like the person that is running Nova Vita while we're here has six children, and her 3 oldest ones were in high school, and she said, Katrina, none of them can read. And Garen had just started learning to read in grade 2, and so I just took what the teacher was teaching me to how to teach Garen to read, and told her how to do it, and she started teaching her own kids how to read because the school wasn't doing it, and so they're begging us for a school for that reason, and because our area, as you can see here, this is quite a few years ago, this photo, there are now hundreds of new houses all in this area. And so it's a new area, and there's big growth there, but they're all houses and no schools. And so there's no school close to all of these houses, and they have to walk at least probably 45 minutes to the main road, and then either get transport if they can afford it, or continue walking another half hour to get to school. And so it's a long way to get to any school. And so once we've got our preschool, our primary school, then they will have a good quality primary school that they can get a good education and continue from preschool into primary school. So that's what we're doing, looking to the future. So my husband, I love my husband. He has the best ideas and he acts on them immediately. And so he got this idea that we need to have chairs and tables for our school. And so he went and he got them all made. So, well, not all of them, but this is like for our school. And he did that because he wanted to see if it was going to be good enough. Like, you know, can he get someone to make them locally? So they are locally made by someone that Zach found, and they were not expensive. You know, like he was able to find wood that wasn't too expensive, and the man, knowing what the project was willing to do a good deal for him. And so we've got tables and chairs. And then this is the school. So it's got 3 classrooms and a staff room and a toilet block. Is that everything there? And then it's also got room for stairs because we're going to go up. Our land isn't overly big. It's only about 2 acres of land. And so it's not overly big for like a school to have a big playground. We want to put a football field in and a playground and different things. And so we thought if we go up, instead of having two separate things, then we'll have more room for the playground. And so that's the first 3 classrooms, and that's all we need to start. So the government will allow us to start with that, and then we have to every year add 1 more classroom until we've got 6 classrooms. And then that's all we need for the primary school. And then we're not sure yet. We may continue to do secondary school, but we're not sure. That's in the future still. We're trusting God for this at the moment. So this is what we're trusting God for at the moment. So we've got friends in, I think that's the end. I think it's the end one. Yeah, thank you. Whoops. So we've got friends in America who have been helping do fundraising, and they're coming in June. So Zach's going back in June, and he will be helping them to hopefully get all of that built. So we need to get, at the moment we've got the sand in, and we need to put, is this all the sand there? Or no? Yeah, they've had rain. It floods very easily. And so that foundation that you saw comes up to about here on me when I'm standing there, because that's how tall it's going to have to be so that if it does flood, it won't flood the classrooms. And so we've made sure we've gone up a lot. But that makes it more expensive because then you have to fill that with sand and then put the cement on to then build up. And so... But Zach's going back in June to help this American team do that. But we still need more finances to come in as well. And so we're just trusting God that, you know, He will bring it all in. And we want to be able to start the school next year. That's our goal, is to actually start the school next year. And with the first 3 classrooms. And then once the first 3 are done, that's the biggest cost, because it means that the roof is also going to have to be totally cement roof. So it's going to have to be totally a cement roof, because then we're going to put another level on. The top level can have a roof like this, but we need to get to the top first. So that's what we're doing at the moment, because we really believe that children need to have a good education. If you're going to change a nation, you need to have educated people that know how to think for themselves, that know how to how to do business. Like the family that live in that little house that is on our land, both of them are illiterate, and they try so hard. We've helped them, I don't know how many times, to try and start a business, but they don't know how to do business because they haven't been taught, like they don't have any understanding. And so they use all their money up and come back to Zach, we need more money. It's like, no, a business is where you put in, and then you like keep some for yourself, and then you keep some to like buy more like product, but they've got no idea how to do it. It's like, and so, but if we've got children who are learning how to do that, the next generation will be different. And so. So I hope that I've been able to give you an idea of our ministry and what it was like for me on my journey. And I just encourage you to trust God. I just want to finish with one more verse that we actually, our emblem for our preschool, we call our preschool Nova Vita, so it's not the same as the Living Word Ministries. Nova Vita means new life. And that came from Jeremiah chapter 17, verses 7 and 8. I didn't write that down. I think it's 7 and 8. And this is Katrina's version because I don't have it written down, okay? So it's going to be a little bit not right. But it says, "Those who trust in the Lord and whose hope is in him are like a tree that's planted by the waters. Its roots go down deep. It always has green leaves because it doesn't fear in time of drought." And there's two there that I can't remember the other one. "And it always produces fruit." Isn't that amazing? That's what happens when you're trusting God. Your leaves are always green, okay? And you're producing fruit even in the drought. It's like, and so right now, Australia's in a time of desperate need. It's like, but we as Christians, our trust is in him. And he provides. He provides your every need. It's like, don't get me started. I need to sit down. So, okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, keep that applause going. Would you stand this morning? We're going to finish with some worship. Katrina, that was brilliant, and you ended with Stacey and my life verse, Jeremiah 17, 7, 8. I think you got it pretty right. Sounded good to me. What a great testimony. Did you enjoy that? That was brilliant. Looking forward to sharing morning tea together after the meeting. Catch up with Katrina and Zach. I like that you called him Zach. I'm like, oh, good. We're Aussie. We shorten everything. It's all good. Catch up with Katrina, Zach and family after the service. Ask them some questions. I've got some questions. But let's worship this new song. Anne, can you stick the words I'm thinking up in my head, put them on the screen? I think it's, "This is the gospel." That's it. Yep. This is the gospel.